I know many of you are still trying to find seating, and that's always, I guess, a good thing in this case. There's a lot of interest here in Ward 6 to hear from our two candidates. I'm Pastor Jonathan Zilski. I'm the pastor here at Hope Lutheran Church, and I want to welcome you to our Heights Center for Hope. This is a new space that we have created for these very kinds of community activities. As you see the banners behind, we want this to be a place of creativity, collaboration, and community. And so with that in mind, we thought it would be helpful to host this candidate forum, and we are thankful to have Councilman Dan Bostrom with us, along with B. Kevin Xiong. So let's give them a hand. I'm going to, at this point, turn it over to our two moderators. Tim Snyder works with me as our outreach architect, and he'll be one of the moderators along with Wally Wagner, who is a resident here in Ward 6. So with that, I guess I'll hand it off.
Well, let me also just extend my welcome to all of you. Welcome to the Heights Center for Hope, and we're so excited to have you here for the candidate forum. We're going to go ahead and launch right into this, and so the way that this will begin is we will begin with an opportunity for the candidates to outline their vision for the East Side, for Ward 6. We'll also we'll give them 5 minutes each to do that before we launch into some moderated questions. These are questions that have been prepared in advance and that the candidates have received in advance. And from there, we're going to do something kind of unique. We're going to throw the questions back to you guys. And there will be a point in the conversation here where you see discussion in small groups and gathering of audience questions. At that point, we're going to ask that you cluster up with people around you and talk about what you heard. Talk about your own questions, things that you're bringing to this evening, questions that you may have. And we'll ask you to write those questions down on your pieces of paper, the note cards that are going around. And then we'll collect those and we'll get to just as many of them as we can during the second part of our questions. So with that, I'm going to invite the candidates to do their own introduction, their kind of outline, their opening remarks. And we didn't flip a coin for this, but who would like to start?
Thank you, Larry.
Good evening. Well, I want to thank Hope Lutheran, first of all, for extending the opportunity for us to get together this evening. They've really been an active player in a lot of the good things that are happening in this neighborhood. Just a couple of months ago, we had the new grand opening of the school right across the street. It's a consolidation of Prosperity Heights and also Hayden Heights School, really presenting a great opportunity for this neighborhood and a success for this neighborhood to keep these schools open here. My name is Dan Bostrom. I'm a lifelong East Side resident, and by lifelong, that's a long, long time. I was born here. My folks lived here. My father came over from Sweden in 1930. And I graduated from Johnson High School several years ago. And no matter what year somebody wants to know, I don't know if they were keeping records back in those days or not, but it was at the old building, which is now called the John A. Johnson Achievement Plus building. And, you know, I just kind of bring that up because a lot of the things that happened, made me the way I am, really started down there at Johnson High School. And I grew up here, as I said before. My kids all grew up here. My wife was from Isle, Minnesota. We raised 3 boys who all went to Johnson High School and graduated from there also. Several years ago, Johnson High School, the old building, was sitting up on the hill up there, and it was dilapidated, run down, and had been sitting vacant basically since 1964, the last year that a graduating class graduated from there. And you know, it troubled me for many, many years that nothing ever happened with that building. Several years ago, the city of St. Paul even tried to take it, or the school district wanted to give it to the city for $1. And the city would not even take it because it needed so much work to get it fixed up. Well, many years ago, there was a group that was attempting to put a new school system in place and a new program, which was the Wilder, which was working with the Achievement Plus program. They were looking for a place to locate that school. And they selected a place down in Phelan Village, down where in the area where the Cubs store is right now. And they wanted to put a building down there, a new school. And I asked them, why did you want to do that? And they said, well, because we can get the land free. We can get it from the city of St. Paul. They own it. They'll give it to us. And we can do that. And they said, well, that's really the wrong answer as to why you would cite a school there, because Prosperity is 6 blocks to the north. Ames is 6 blocks to the south. And Parkway is another 6 blocks to the southwest. And Harrison is 6 blocks totally to the west. Why in the world would you do that? They said, well, you know, we can get it right and we bus all the kids in anyway. I said, you know, that's really the wrong reason to locate a school. And they asked me, well, where would you like to put it? And I said, I'm not exactly sure at this moment. But it was about 3 weeks later, I was down on Arcade Street at the Rainbow store and looking up on the hill, and I saw that grand old building in the dilapidated state up there, the old Johnson. I thought, you know, how that bubble light sometimes goes on, you say, you know, that's the place. And after a great deal of struggle with a lot of folks, we got them to agree to do that. The upshot is that that building was restored with over $20 million worth of investment in it. There was a new YMCA that was attached to it, which is a huge addition to that neighborhood. And in addition to that, because the YMCA moved, that cleared the spot at Magnolia and Arcade Street where the old Y was, and that was demoed, and that became the new home of the Hmong American Partnership, and I was able to work with the city of St. Paul in helping get that project going and get it off the ground in this great facility that's located there. The reason I just kind of give you a little background on that is that nothing happens overnight, and there are things that you learn as you go through life about what you can do and what you can do a little better. Leaving that old building up there forever and ever didn't seem to make any sense at all. It didn't make any sense at all to build another school on a spot just because somebody said we can get it for $1. You know, if they had built that school down there, there would be no BCA, there would be no Wells Fargo Bank down there. All the housing that's in that area would not exist. So many of these things happened because of the fact the school was located at the old Johnson, and in addition to that, that school really needed to be there because there was not an elementary school in that neighborhood, so it worked out fine. So there's a lot of stories like that I could tell you, but I'm not going to bother with that right now. I was just a little background. I was a St. Paul police officer for 26 years, worked for the state of Minnesota also for 5 years with the financing of multi-jurisdictional narcotics task forces around the state. I served 10 years on the St. Paul Board of Education. I've been on the City Council now for nearly 16 years. So just a little bit of background, and again, thank you so much. I enjoyed this, and I think I've learned a little bit about how you get things done in government, and I'd certainly like to continue to do that for a while longer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Pastor Jonathan, and everyone in this church for hosting this forum between me and Mr. Bostrom. And I'm glad that everyone showed up tonight. I talked to Mr. Jonathan today, and he said, we might have 40 people. I said, no, I think we have more than that. So I'm glad everyone came. Well, anyway, my name is Mi Kemajong. I was born back in Laos in 1970 and struggled through the jungle during the Vietnam War. With my father, who served for this country, defending the U.S. And we struggled through the country for over 10 years, when it was about 8 to 10 years. And we crossed the Mekong River about 30 days to cross the Mekong River to this country. My father brought me here when I was 14, but unfortunately he passed away shortly after we arrived in this country. But I still remember how he taught me to be a son, to be a community servant, and taught me how to love the community and serve for the community. And I kept my father's word and his vision that serve for the community, such as the United States. And I continued my vision and go on to high school and graduate from high school before he passed away. After he passed away. I continued and received my master's degree in guidance and counseling in 1992. I was a youth leader, captain. I helped other youth become leaders and served for the community for many years when I was in college and throughout my life. I moved to Minnesota in 2001. And I've been living in the East Side for almost 10 years now, serving the community. I was part of the Hmong American Partnership Forum board at one time. I also served for the Hmong Xiong United National Organization for almost 10 years now, and have done a lot of public service to the community, not just for the Hmong, but the whole community in Minnesota since I moved here. My degree is in guidance counseling, but I did not pursue that further. I pursued my career with real estate. I'm a real estate agent in Minnesota here, so. Talking about the East Side, I imagine myself and I want to see East Side a very different city in 10 years from now. And I want the East Side to be the very safest place for our citizens. I want to make sure that my kids, your parents, my parents, they can walk safely to the corner store. I want to make sure that all these vacant homes are reduced, eliminated, so we can put all citizens into these vacant homes. I want to bring a small business. I want to bring jobs to the East Side. That's what my vision in 10 years from now. And as we can see, if you look at the statistic, East Side has the most vacant homes in St. Paul. We currently have 313 homes in the East Side, which is more than Frogtown, which is they had 287. And East Side had the most crime rate in the last 10 years. And no one has taken into accountability into this. And I want to be that person working with all of you tonight, that we can help the city to become a better city for everyone, safer for everyone. I want to improve this housing crisis. I know economy is down at this point, but that's not the issue. Housing, we can improve it. But we can work with local government. We can work with local bank. And we can provide the 203K program for our citizens, so that we can get all these citizens back into their home for low income, medium income family in the East Side, so they can qualify and buy this home for their family, put them back into the vacant home. Talking about safety issues, we can do this. We can work with the police department. We want to make sure that we have proper training for this police officer. Putting more police on the road is not going to solve these issues, people. No, it's not. We will make sure that they are accountable for what they do. We want to make sure that they are properly trained for what they do every day. We want to make sure that after-school programs are available for our kids. We want to make sure that internet are provided for our kids in the East Side, so they can stay home between 3 and 7. They can stay off trouble. That will reduce a lot of crimes in the East Side. And no one has done that in the past. And I would be that person that's doing that. And small business, yes, we can provide, we can improve small business by working with the city to make sure that zoning is an issue. I've been door knocked every night. They say zoning is an issue. We can improve this and provide small business. They say property tax. Why property taxes keep going up? Because value are going down. Why they are going up? That's not making sense, are they? That doesn't make sense to me. And I do door knock every day. That's what I've been told. And we could do that. What my vision for the St. Paul, East Side St. Paul, we want to be safe. We want to bring jobs to the East Side. And we want to improve this housing. That's the 3 issues that I want to bring to the East Side St. Paul. If we all can work together, me, myself, we can't take this alone. We all need to work together. If you vote for me on November 8th, we will work together and we'll improve a better city for everybody to live in the east side St. Paul. Thank you.
For the next set of moderated questions, you'll have 3 minutes apiece, and we will alternate who starts first for kind of equal opportunity in that way. The first question that we will start with, we'll start with Mr. Bostrom. This question is, we'll start with you anyway. Again, 3 minutes for this. What is the single biggest challenge facing St. Paul's East Side? And what will you do to address that in quite concrete terms with the other members of City Council?
Well, when you really look at it, the big issues that are facing us, jobs, housing, public safety. And I think I've taken a leadership position in all of those areas. Jobs, we've worked and developed the Phelan Boulevard, which is took a barren piece of property down there, created a great roadway that runs from Interstate 35 up to Johnson Parkway, has opened it up to many, many new businesses. I'm on the Port Authority, and we developed the Westminster Junction down at Westminster and Phelan Boulevard, and there's over 1,000 jobs down in that neighborhood. Some of the latest ones that have been developed are the new ambulance service up at Arcade and Phelan Boulevard. Waldinger Bakery just opened down here, and the Hmong Village just opened about a year ago. And they're very, very successful. It's a great place. I've worked very hard to create conditions where jobs can happen and take place. Currently on the Port Authority, we are involved in demolition of a lot of the old 3M property, and there will be an opportunity for many, many jobs to be created on that site. With regard to law enforcement and police, I've worked, as I said, I was with the St. Paul Police Department for 26 years. One of the things that I have done all the time that I've been on the City Council is work to increase the presence of police officers, to make them more effective, to get technology in their cars so they can respond better, have better information when they get to where they're going. The ability to do the background checks on people that they're stopping, and also officer safety. I've been in a situation as a young sergeant where a patrol officer that worked for me was shot and killed. I know the struggles that these folks, the police officers, go through. I also know that there are some very dangerous people in the community, and we've been very successful, I think, in recent years here. Things have really settled down over on the east side. This past spring, I was instrumental in getting 4 new cameras installed around Lake Phelan. We'd had some problems over there. The last few years there were 4 new cameras that were installed. They are now part of the St. Paul police system that are monitored all the time, and that is really, I think, doing a great job. Okay. Housing, of course, is a gigantic issue. We have a lot of vacant houses. There's no question about that. But I'll tell you one thing, we don't have as many vacant houses as we did 4 years ago. And the reason for that is because I got an ordinance passed that my colleagues on the council didn't think was going to make a difference. And it's made a huge difference. The ability to get some of the worst properties either repaired or demolished, and making banks come to the reality that they can't get $150,000 for a piece of junk that's only worth $20,000. It's opened up the market so responsible rehabbers can go in, buy them reasonably, fix them up, and then return those to the market as safe, livable homes. We'll talk a little bit about the numbers later on.
Same question to you, Mr. Xiong. Sure. What is the single biggest challenge facing St. Paul's East Side, and what would you do to address that challenge, working with other members of the council?
Absolutely. Oops, sorry. The most challenging in the east side that I see impacting everyone today, absolutely, I agree with Mr. Bostrom on housing, crimes, and jobs. But most of the 3, I would say crimes will be the most important on top of that, so I'm going to go ahead and address that. I've been doing door knocks since August, and 9 out of 10 I ask, what are the issues on the east side? They're going to say crimes. crimes all the time. In fact, last week, I was doing door knock in this White Bear area here, and one of the lady in the early 60s told me that we need to do something about this. These vacant homes, they were gangbang, they were illegal activity are doing around the corner. And I was walking to the store and these people robbed me. And I said, then what happened? And they ran my purse. And that's what he told. So crime is probably one of the most important in the east side here. Yesterday, in fact, I was doing door knock in the west side of White Bear. Two gentlemen in their early 30th told me, he said, sir, are you B. Kevin Xiong? I said, yes, I am. I said, can I have some of your signs? I said, sure, I'd be happy to give you some signs. I said, what are some of the issues you see in the east side? He said, crime, you know what? We got robbed twice last night with a gun pointed in my hand. We had my backyard. And I said, certainly that's an issue. I see there's an issue in the east side. What can we do it? I talked a little bit about my vision earlier. I want the east side to be safe for everyone, not just for our kids, but for our parents and for everyone that's sitting in their yard. Make sure they're doing barbecue, they're safe. Even they're running to the store, they're safe. And that what we can do is, again, simply put more cops on the road. We know that's not going to solve it. I'm going to tell that again and again. Make sure these police are accountable for what they do every day. And make sure that I will bring broadband to east side. Why can't that be solved? Because broadband that we can put in every family, their kids will stay home between 3 and 7 and 8. And that will keep them out of trouble. That will solve some of the problem. We can improve the vacant home. That will solve a lot of the issue here. So that's something that we can do to improve the east side for a safer place for everyone to live. Thank you.
Thank you. In fairness now, we're going to ask Mr. Xiong if you would respond to this first. We've been talking about jobs and we're looking for more detail there. We believe the best social service program in the world is a good paying job. We understand that the communities of color are underemployed or unemployed disproportionately in our city. And talking about jobs, and we talked about it briefly, what initiatives or ideas do you have to reach out to members of this community to help create jobs and help these people get hired?
Well, I'm committed to a public job. And what we can do is, again, we will pass an ordinance that more flexible for our new starters, new program for new starters that who want to start business. And again, I talked about zoning before. These are some of the issues that we cannot bring small business to the east side, and we need to work with the city to make sure that these ordinances are not so strictly for these people, so that we can have these people that can bring these people into the job. In fact, we just had the city council vote no to a big company, big job a couple of weeks ago. You probably see it in the news. And job is very important, not even just the east side. I think St. Paul, we need all jobs in St. Paul. And the 7th city councilman just voted no to that. And I basically disagree with that. So we definitely need a new job in the east side.
Thank you. Mr. Bostrom, again to you. I know again you spoke briefly about jobs, but we want more detail. Again, the community of color are unemployed and underemployed disproportionately in our city. That in mind, what initiatives or ideas do you have to help reach out to members of the community to help create jobs?
I think I've been working on that now for the last almost 16 years that I've been on the council, because I understand that that truly is what we have to do. And there is nothing like a job. And I just have to make a clarification here on the statement that was made about the council voting no on a jobs proposal a couple of weeks ago. I wasn't there. I didn't vote no for that. I was under the weather and I wasn't at that part of the meeting, so just so you understand that. I've been a great supporter of jobs. I've taken a lot of flack from it, but I understand that we really need to do that. And as I said, with the Port Authority, we have created over 1,000 jobs on the east side. We've cleaned up a lot of property. When Mr. Xiong mentions the business of zoning. This is a very touchy issue, because if you happen to live next to a building that was a bar at one time, and somebody wants to come in and put in a bar, as some folks want to do, and not have one parking place, and say they're going to park all those cars on the street, and you're living on a street with 40-foot lots and everybody's got 2 cars, and you want to park your own car in your own street, and somebody wants to have a bar that'll sit or seat 50, 60 people, where are those people going to park? Are they going to take up all the parking in your area? My point with a lot of this stuff with zoning is, if we're going to do these things, the business people have to provide adequate parking for those businesses, because I think that the folks that live in these neighborhoods that are contributing every day, going back and forth to work, have got a right to be unmolested in their home by cars coming and going at all hours of the day and night. I've taken a lot of heat over some of the things, but most of it has come down to people wanting to get restaurants or bars and without adequate parking, and spilling that parking over onto the street. And I'll tell you, it creates all sorts of problems. If any of you have ever lived next to a noisy bar, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When things are being carried on at 11, 12 o'clock at night, you're trying to sleep so you can go to work the next day, or you've got children who want to go to school the next day, and there's all sorts of loud music going on. It is not pleasant at all. So I've worked very, very hard on that, and we've worked with people when there are special circumstances. The Moon Village is a classic example of that. When that was proposed, the first thing I said when I saw it, I said, this is a great looking proposal, people. It's a building that's been sitting there for a long time. If we can do something great. And when I looked at it, I said, the one trouble you're going to have here is if you're successful, you're going to have a parking problem. And you know what? I like that, because we need a parking problem here on the east side, and we are currently working with them today to address that and create more parking.
Thank you. Again, at this point, we'll start with you, Mr. Bostrom. You have talked a little bit now about what you already have done, so now let's shift gears to what you will do in the future. What else can be done? Given the number of vacant homes in the ward, what do you see as the role of City Council in helping to prevent those houses from becoming derelict? I mean, how can we help fill those vacancies? And again, a special emphasis on what you'll do in the upcoming years for this question. 3 minutes.
Well, I think the best thing to do to look to the future is look at what somebody has done in the past. I have taken the lead on housing issues in the St. Paul City Council for the last dozen years, starting with rental registration for duplexes, where these were non-owner occupied homes, and the landlords were not taking very good care of these things, and we've got inspections going on in there now. So when people live in a rental property, that place is safe. If you're going to have your children in there, it's going to be safe. There aren't going to be lead paint issues. There aren't going to be leaking furnace flues or any of that kind of stuff. These things are going to be safe for you and your family. The discussion about vacant homes, sometimes it's made to sound like it's a very simple deal. Well, it's not, because when a house goes into foreclosure and the people that live in that house vacate it, that house is owned by somebody. The city cannot just go in there and take it over and say, we're going to rehab it. We can't do that. There's something in the U.S. Constitution about due process that says the owner has got a right to do something with that property. A lot of times they don't. So when the property isn't being taken care of by the owner, the City of St. Paul will step in, we'll board it up. If we have to, we'll shut off the water, we'll cut the grass, we'll shovel the snow, we'll do all of that stuff. However, all of that is billed back to that property. At some point in the future, someone will buy that property and those debts will be repaid, and the city will get their money for doing that. We aren't doing that just as a social service so the rest of the folks have to pay for it. It will be repaid by the folks that ultimately would buy that property. And the big part of this is when they finally become available, is to get responsible rehabbers in there to do it. Several years ago, you may have watched what was going on TV. You see the late night infomercials where people would say, you know, come in and get into real estate. You can make tens of thousands of dollars overnight. Well, they'd go in there and find out you don't make $10,000 or $20,000 overnight. You get into a house that needs $50,000 or $60,000 worth of work, and you've got $150 cash to your name. It simply doesn't work. These houses, in many cases, the roofs are bad, the foundations are cracked, the heating plants are bad, the electrical work is way out of whack, the plumbing is bad, and they need professionals, and it needs to be brought up to code so there's safe living units so families can live safely in this neighborhood. That's what it's all about, fixing up houses right and having them available at the right price so rehabbers can go in there and fix them and do it right and make it economical to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Xiong? Same question for you. Given the number of vacant homes in the ward, what do you see as the role of City Council in helping prevent those houses from becoming derelict? And what will you do, what can be done to fill those vacancies?
Well, there's no question about vacant homes on the east side. I talk about it, talk again. We had the most homes in the east side St. Paul. 313 homes is not small at all. It's a large number of vacant homes in the east side. And compared to all the 7 wards in St. Paul, we had the very, very most vacant homes, and we need to do something about it. Simply that I mentioned again the 203K program that we can get from the bank, a local bank. We can solve these issues. Not just that 203K will solve the issues. We need to work with the city, make sure that the owners, I don't know if everyone knows about what category 1, 2, and 3 means. Even a home that with a peeling paint and vacant for more than 60 days, then the city put code 2. About the Central Corridor starting Young City down in Ward 1 into downtown Ward 2. I think if we can get this light rail, I support the light rail. I think if we can get a light rail go through St. Paul all the way to Hudson, don't you think that's nice for everyone? I think that if we can get that program work out and light rail can go all the way not just to downtown but all the way to Hudson, I can take into consideration and evaluate this program, and then we can bring this light rail into, we'll come across to east side and go to Hudson. I think that would be a plus, but something that we can plan and set up for the future. I think that's very important. Thank you.
Mr. Bostrom, the same question. What do you see are the greatest needs in the area of transportation and public works, and what will you do to address those needs if you're re-elected?
Well, I've been working on the public works area for a long, long time, and one of the things that was accomplished was the Phelan Boulevard. That was a huge, huge process, and that took about 10 years to get that all done. Right now, as we speak, there's rehab work, redevelopment work that's going on Payne Avenue. For any of you that have been down on Payne Avenue, it started 2 years ago when we did the lower Payne Avenue from 7th Street to the bridge at Phelan Boulevard. Last year we did from Phelan Boulevard to Cook Street, and now as we speak we're doing from Cook Street to Orange Avenue. That all happened as a result of a discussion I was having with Ann Polachek at her little coffee shop up on Payne Avenue several years ago. We were talking about what could be done to kind of improve this area, and as we mused on that a little bit, one of the things that we really came to realize that Payne Avenue, the sidewalks, the lights were old, the street needed some work. It really needed a facelift. I worked very, very hard with our public works people to get that into the budget and to get that done, and it's being completed this year. Public Works also, St. Paul is a winter city, and you all know that. And if it's going to be a successful winter city, you've got to take care of the snow. You simply have to plow the snow, get it out so people can get out and they can get to work, they can get to shop, they can do business. That becomes a very, very critical issue. I'll guarantee you one thing, that light rail is not going to be the salvation that saves the east side. I'll tell you that right now. We used to have streetcars over here, and they were all over the place, and what did they do with them? They took them out and brought buses in 50 or 60 years ago, and now we're talking about going back. I don't exactly get that, because I rode those old streetcars, and I know how limiting they are. And you'd have a long lesson someday on the way the East Side developed, but it all developed early on around the streetcar lines. And I think it's also important to recognize that we are a community, we're a city that's driven by the automobile. For every bike that you see on the street, you'll probably see 1,000 cars. We've got a lot of people that I would venture to guess that most of you that came here tonight drove. And it's a lousy night outside, and I really appreciate you taking the time to get here. But if you were going to walk here over a period of 5, 6, 8, or 10 blocks, it would not be a pleasant night. And 2 months from now, it's really going to be tough. So we've got to take care of those streets, make sure that they're sanded, that they're plowed, that people can get through. Again, as I say, we're a winter city. We have to be a winter city that works so people can get back and forth to jobs and do it safely.
This question does begin with you again, so this time on education. How will you work with the other members of City Council and the school board members to improve educational opportunities for both children and adults of our ward, especially those of color, in order to better serve the current and future needs of this community?
I've had quite an experience with education over the years, starting from the time my boys were in kindergarten. And that was a long, long time ago, because my son Matthew, who you may know, was recently elected as the Ramsey County Sheriff. And when he started going to kindergarten is when I started getting involved in PTA. And I've been involved in schools basically ever since. I spent time with Prosperity Heights PTA, also with Hazel Park PTA as a treasurer of PTA up there many, many years ago. I spent 10 years on the St. Paul Board of Education, 6 of those years as the chair of the board. And one of the big things that I really worked on in those days that had to do with discipline, with having an orderly structure in the classroom where teachers could teach and students could learn, and you didn't have a handful of kids that were causing problems and disrupting everything else. We made an awful lot of progress back in those years and continue to work on that today. Excuse me. It's nice, I know all the members of the Board of Education personally. It's great to be able to pick up the phone and give them a call. I know the superintendent well. And one of the great things that we've got going over here on the east side are some great schools. One of them is the Farnsworth Aerospace Program, which started out as a K-6 program. I worked with the neighbors on that, the parents. It got going so well that they wanted to expand that to a K-8. And they asked me if I would help them work with the school district to see if they couldn't build onto the building. We looked at it and said that's just not realistic to do that. However, there was a building about 6 blocks south of there that did have a lot of space in it. It was the old Cleveland Junior High. This was a building built for about 1,000 kids. It had 200 kids in it. It was grossly underused. And it was time to do something, and suggested to the parents that they may think about maybe we could stagger the program, have part of it at Farnsworth at the original building, have part of it down at the southern building. And they didn't know if that was going to work. They were a little concerned about some security issues and some other things. We worked with the city, we worked with the school district. Ultimately, the school district decided to expand the program down there. That building today has, I would say, between 500 and 600 children in it in 4th through 8th grade. Got a great aerospace and engineering program going on. They run kindergarten through 4th grade at the old building, and now the plan is to continue that whole program and the progress that those kids have made up to Johnson Senior High School.
Thank you. Same question. How will you work with the other members of City Council and school board members to improve educational opportunities for both children and adults of our ward, especially those of color, in order to serve the current and future needs of our community?
Well, sorry, my mic's here. Well, My background in education is guidance and counseling, and I've been working with a lot of parents and students throughout my career, and even back in college. And I think as a as a council member, I think we need to work together with the school board, and we want to make sure that proper resources are available for our students. We want to make sure that conditions of the schools are good enough for our kids. We want to make sure that programs are available for kids. And talking about student of color, we need extra curriculum after school for the program for these kids and prepare them to higher education, especially for the student of color with English as the second language. Some of the kids are very smart. They are very competitive with the Caucasian community, but some still needs a lot of help. So we need special program and special curriculum after school for kids. We want to make sure that resources are available for these kids, and we need to develop that kind of program. Thank you.
Mr. Xiong, again, the question is for you first, and this talks about the quality of life. Often during campaigns we hear about what's wrong with the communities, but part of what we believe is beautiful about our community is the cultural diversity. There's a lot going on in the city that celebrates that diversity, but not much here on the east side. What would you do to promote cultural offerings in the ward if you are elected?
Good question. I'm Hmong, but I'm not just representing the Hmong, I represent the whole east side. And I work with a lot of diversity in the past. I have involved in multicultural organization in the past when I was in college and throughout my career. What we can do to bring everyone together in the east side, what we can do is we can reach out for these residents, not just the Caucasian community, but all minority in the east side. According to records, I think the Caucasian, we have about 47% population in the east side, and we have, 43, and we have about 57 minority combined in the east side. I think we need to reach out for this minority and everyone to come out and build an organization or association together. If we get that association together, east side, we can celebrate our life, our culture, our beliefs, our values, and New Year's each year, and we learn each other. That will bring everyone together. The east side, a simple thing like that. Why that has not been done in the past, I don't know, but it's something I can bring to the east side because I do the experience that bring everyone together. Thank you.
Mr. Bostrom, then the same question for you. Again, we often hear in campaigns about what's wrong with our communities, but what we believe we have a beautiful about our communities is our cultural diversity. There's a lot going on in the city that celebrates this diversity, but not much happens on the east side. Again, what would you do to promote cultural offerings if you are reelected?
Well, these are things that generally don't work very well when they come from the top down. Most of these things work a lot better when they work from the ground up. And what the city can do is provide circumstances where these kinds of things can happen. Many, many years ago, when the Winter Carnival was struggling, the city of St. Paul decided that they were going to try and help it and improve it. Well, what happened, it got worse. And the more and more that the public sector gets involved in trying to plan these things, I think the less and less community resources take place. I think these things have to happen from the ground up. And I was, a couple of weeks ago, I was at the St. Casimir's Church for the Polish Days that they had up there. I get downtown when we have the Hmong New Year down at the River Center. I'm on the River Center board down there. And these are kinds of things that are happening. I'm over at the Dragon Festival, and the Dragon Festival has been going on. We had the White Bear Avenue Parade, the Ramsey County Fair out here. For years we had the parades and the activities down on Payne Avenue, and right now on Payne Avenue on a lot of weekends there's an awful lot of things that are happening culturally down there. particularly with the Hispanic community down south of Key Street. So there are a lot of things going on, and I personally believe that the city can help create the circumstances where communities can do this. I'm glad to see that this is happening in a church. I think this is one of the best places in the world to start an activity to have good things happen. When you get good people together that want to do some good things for their neighborhood, this is a great place to start. In the schools and in the churches, we've got the community councils that are working, and a lot of it is just for folks to get involved and do it. And then for the city to be there and partner with you, if that is involving providing security or doing other things like for National Night Out, that's where we can step in and we can help. But the city is not who you want to run your cultural events.
Thank you. We've reached that point in the evening where we're ready to engage you all in a more active kind of way. And so there are a number of cards and writing things to write with around the room. And if you don't have one, just put your hand up. And Bree will come get you one. So what we're going to ask you to do now is turn to your neighbor, to the person sitting next to you, turn around, face the person behind you. Get into a little group here of 3 or 4, maybe just a pair, and come up with some questions that you would like to ask the candidates, and we'll try to get to as many of them. We'll take about 15 minutes on time. In the starting question, we'll start with you, Mr. Bostrom. If St. Paul is going to be livable, how can it be car-centered?
Well, I think realistically, and my kids used to say, Dad, we think you're a pessimist because I wouldn't let them do everything they wanted to do when they wanted to do it when they were little kids growing up. And now when they got older and have kids of their own, they said, you know, Dad, we are kind of changing our opinion on that. We think now that you were probably a practical realist. And I think that's what I am. And that's why I asked the question, what did you use for transportation to get here tonight? I don't see myself anything on the horizon that's going to replace the automobile. I think that's a fact of life for the next 50 years probably. And that's something that we're going to have to deal with and have to live with. And if you're going to get back and forth to work, and people work in Bloomington, they work in Forest Lake, there's no other way to get there. And there isn't going to be light rail that serves all these far-flung organizations, and when you work for a company that has places in different areas, and you have to get, if you work at Maplewood Mall at Macy's, for example, and they need you over at Rosedale, how are you going to get over there? It's not going to be on a bus, you're going to have to drive. And it's just a fact of life that the automobile is here, it's with us, and we're just going to have to learn how to, and continue to learn how to deal with it.
Can you rephrase the question, please? Rephrase.
Sure. The question was, I think it was banking off of Mr. Bostrom's earlier comment about being car-centered, about a city that's car-centered. And if we're going to have a high quality of life, it's going to be livable, how can it be car-centered and livable at the same time?
You're talking about transportation, correct? I'm not quite sure if I understand the question correctly, but I'm going to try my best to answer the question. Again, I'm a supporter of light rail. I know that's going to raise a lot of tax. Talking about the front town, just to name a few things in the front town, but they're going to have to raise a lot of tax to get the light rail going through. But light rail is going to be important for future residents, for workers that have to go through downtown, because this one's going to be real tough after the light rail coming through downtown. So I think that's going to be real important. Again, I know the east side is not going to be relevant to, I know the east side is going to be relevant, but if we can get a path to east side, that'd be perfectly great for downtown workers. So thank you.
Thank you. There's a couple people here. Mrs. Xiong, we're going to start with you. Talking about taxes and property taxes, what would you do to help keep the property taxes down, and would you support a hiring freeze or a pay freeze to help reduce the budget?
I talked about property tax before. Property tax, we have all these homes, everybody know that the value are coming down. rapidly, and property tax keep going up. And that's one of the issues I do not and people doesn't like and doesn't make sense. Why property value going down and property tax going up? That's one of the issues. I think I don't think we can reduce property tax, but we can stabilize property tax to keep up the city. That's what we need to do as the city councilman.
Thank you. And again, Mr. Bostrom, the same thing, as property taxes are going up and as costs are going up, what would you do to help with those? Would you consider pay freezes or hiring freezes for the city budget?
All of those things have been tried over the years. And the one thing that I've learned about the way systems work, it's cyclic. You have your peaks and valleys, the way things go. The economy moves in cycles. And if you look back to 1982, we were in a situation that was similar to what we are in today, when there was high unemployment, and at that particular time, the interest rates were sky high. And it looked very, very bleak. The city of St. Paul at that time laid off 30 police officers, had 30 more that took early retirement. They laid off 30 firefighters and had 30 more of them take early retirement. And that was true over many, many city departments. As time went on, in a year or two, things improved and the city went back and they rehired those people. There are times that you just have to buck up and you're going to have to get by with a little less. Nobody wants to pay more in property taxes. I get that. But everybody wants to have that police officer. When you dial 911, they want a police officer to come. If your house is on fire, or you're having a heart attack and you dial 911, you want the EMTs to get there, the firefighters to get there. So there is a very sensitive balance between what we need to do and how we pay for it.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions along these lines, so I'm going to consolidate them and hope I do honor to all of the questions. The questions have to do with seniors on the east side, and we have a number of them here. So the question is, what can we do as a city to provide events, community involvement, services, and programs to support our growing senior population?
Well, I think that's one of the perfect places to do that is right here. We've got dozens of churches on the east side, and I think they're a perfect place to do that. We only have a handful of playgrounds and a couple of libraries, but we've got a lot of churches and we've got a lot of schools, and we have opportunities. And when these churches reach out and open up their facilities for things like this and for other senior opportunities, it's great. The church is more than just a building. And it's more than just having Sunday services there at 10 o'clock, and then the thing is basically dark the rest of the week. It's a real opportunity to get out and do things in the community. And I personally think that the churches are one of the underutilized facilities and opportunities that we have, and that's where I'd really like to see us focus and see the community focus its efforts.
Thank you. Mr. Xiong? You want me to repeat the question?
Sure.
The question is about our growing senior population. What kind of community involvement, events, programs, and services can the city provide for them to keep them a strong and vibrant part of our community?
I would agree with a lot with Mr. Bostrom on the senior portion. However, church and school alone are not going to resolve. I think because of the reason that we shut down a lot of parks and recs on the east side, that eliminate a lot of place for seniors to host events or gather in the east side here. And the other thing, we reduced a lot of hours. Some of the recs are only open 6 and 8 hours a week. That's ridiculous. And that's killing everybody east side. We need these hours for senior citizens. They can gather and have fun, enjoy their life in the east side. So that's what we need to include in there. Thank you.
Mr. Xiong, again, I get to address you first. This gets to how you work with other people. When you feel challenged by someone who doesn't agree with you when you're elected, how would you convince them that to come alongside you and work with you? What would be your method?
Well, that basically, it's going to be time to time that the 7 council members will be disagreeing from time to time for certain issues, but as a council member representing East Side, I have to prove to the other council member that this is important. This is what the citizens of the East Side want, not just the interest of Mr. B. Kevin Xiong. It's the interest of people on the East Side, and that should resolve by that way. So,
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bostrom. Again, a question for you: how do you react, and how would you work with people who would disagree with your opinion?
I think the first thing that I do is I listen. That's one thing that I do, and I've been referred to by some of the folks that I've served on boards with as the sponge, because I'll sit there for a long time and just listen to what people are saying, and then attempt to process some of that and kind of figure out what they'd really like to get done and what they're really trying to say. And I ask a lot of questions, and I ask a lot of probing questions, because if it's something that needs to be done, in a lot of cases, most everything that we want to do has been done at some point in the past. And I don't like to just rehash the old stuff. If we've got new ideas out there and we can flesh these things out, I really want to work with people to do that. And I think I've been a very, very good listener. And the example that I used of being at the coffee shop and talking to Miss Ann down there, and where that all went, and the type of development and investment that went on Payne Avenue as a result of that, is a result of listening. And then acting.
Thank you. Well, we're going to have one more question each for us, and then we're going to give you each an opportunity to wrap up with some closing remarks. My last question was about seniors, but this one's from a teenager, so it's kind of a lengthy question, but I think I'll just read it all. And we'll start with you, Mr. Bostrom. As a teenager growing up on the east side of St. Paul, I'm very interested in helping and getting involved in the community. I believe that youth can make a big difference and great changes too, and that everyone can make differences together. My question is, what are your visions for the youths? Any programs, ideas, etc.? After all, we the youth are the adults of the future.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. There is no question about that. And so much of the activities and what a youngster is going to be when they grow up begins in that home. And the attention that that child is getting from the parents. There is absolutely no way to dismiss this. Again, the city cannot take the place of a parent in the house. I think working with the schools and the programs that they have, and having quality programs at the schools and after school opportunities there are critically important. We have several playground activities also that are available for youngsters, and when you take a look at the various things that happen at the playgrounds at Hayden Heights, at Hazel Park, down at Prosperity, at Duluth Case, at Arlington, there's all over the place opportunities for children to get involved and to do things. I'll bet you there's a lot of opportunities right here at this church where they could be of service to the neighborhood if they really wanted to do that. But you know, that's going to take a little push perhaps from the parents to get them out there. I am absolutely a committed believer that you've got to have a strong family to do that. I'll wrap it up and say one last thing. That if kids are going to be successful, the one thing they have to do is to be able to read at grade level by the time they leave the 3rd grade. There are kids that are absent 35 times by Christmas vacation. Folks, that's not a child problem. That's something that's going on in the home. That's why I believe that the home is critically important.
The question was, what are your visions for the youths, programs, ideas, etc., for how we can better serve the youth of our community?
That's a very good question. The youth program, we take in a lot of rec center. We close a lot of rec center. That's not going to improve our youth program. For example, the tennis court right on Johnson Parkway in Maryland that was shut down a couple of years ago, that was upsetting a lot of the neighbors in that area. We will not be able to improve program for our kids, which is our future. And we need to create more program. I think the Pain and Merit project, I think everybody heard about the Pain and Merit project. They spent $14 million for that project, and talking about the program that the Plains only one basketball court in that big $14 million home or rec center. That's not gonna work for the city. $14 million, we can use that $14 million to create more jobs and more programs for our youth, which is our future. So I think we need to consider that, and in order for us to get programs for our kids in the future. Thank you.
Just a personal note, I'm glad I came tonight. Just reading some of these cards, I learned something. I'm relatively new to the East Side, but there's a large number of young people in the area, and there are cultural conflicts and misunderstandings among the cultures and with the laws. What do you see the City Council can do to help bridge that gap between the different communities, the different cultures?
That's a great question too. I think we need to involve, first we need to involve leaders in the community. We need to involve leaders and then bring all these community citizens and teach them how important it is to be involved in the activity that we have, or try to engage them early so they understand. For example, voting. The Hmong community, they don't care about voting. And we try to teach them that voting counts. Voting can change somebody's life in the East Side, for example, or somebody in this country. And we need to have some kind of program that we can educate them. But first, we need to involve with the community leaders, and then the leaders can bring all these citizens in the East Side, and then we can work together. That's something that we need to do.
And Mr. Bostrom, the last question goes for you then again, with the cultural differences, cultural conflicts and misunderstanding. What do you feel the City Council can do to help overcome some of those differences?
There are 7 members of the City Council, and we all represent over 40,000 people. So the chances that any one of us is going to be able to do something very specific is pretty remote. However, we touch a lot of lives and we touch a lot of areas, and it's really kind of bringing people together. As I mentioned before, I was instrumental in working with the community and bringing together a brand new building for the Hmong American Partnership up on our K Street. It's a great facility, and it really serves us well. The children that are going to that aerospace program over at Farnsworth School are doing exceptionally well, and a lot of them are Hmong children too. So it's bringing these opportunities and making them available for folks, and understanding that the city cannot solve the problem. Problems like that, or issues like that, are solved in church basements. They're solved Sunday morning when you're going to church and asking the good Lord for some guidance and leadership as you're moving through your life and for your community. And I think these are the things that we can do, and understanding that government simply cannot do it all. We as citizens have to do a lot of this ourselves.
We're going to give each candidate just a few minutes to have a few closing remarks. We'll return to our 3-minute mark. Just an opportunity to wrap it up, to highlight, bring it home, anything that you've not had the opportunity to address that you feel like you and your campaigner have a strong advantage on. 3 minutes to each. And who would like to start? You want to start? We'll start with you, Mr. Xiong. Closing remarks, yes.
Well, I'm humbled to be here tonight, everyone, and I'm looking forward to work with each and every one of you together to improve the city of St. Paul for a better life for everyone on the East Side. And I'm asking you tonight is your support and your vote. I'm fortunate to what I can do to give my happiness. What I can do is to give my background, my education, my leadership that can bring to this city. And I'm here today that we can work together. We can reduce the crimes on the East Side, is number one goal. We can reduce the housing crisis on the East Side. And we can improve our economy in the East Side. That's something that we can work together. And again, I'm looking forward to work with all of you tonight, and looking forward for your vote and your support on November 8th And when you get me elected, we will work together, make sure our parents, our kids are safe in the East Side. Thank you so much.
Mr. Bostrom, you'll have a closing word. 3 minutes.
Thank you. Well, once again, I really appreciate the opportunity to come down here this evening to see all of you and to share some thoughts with you. I think the best predictor of what's going to happen in the future is taking a look at what you've done in the past. I will really stand by my record of the things that we've gotten accomplished in this community and for the city of St. Paul. It was mentioned, and I knew it was going to come up at some point along the line, the Payne, Maryland project, the Brooks Miracle Center, if you will. This is not a rec center, a $14 million rec center with one gym. I don't know where people get this idea from. This is a great big facility that is going to be a major library and a major contributor, excuse me, to the quality of life here in our community. And it's going to provide computers and access to the internet that has been mentioned as being so very, very important. It's going to be there. It's going to provide kids with an opportunity to do things while they're waiting to get on the computers. If you go to a library today and you'll see kids that are backed up and they may be waiting for an hour to get on a computer, and then the messing around starts happening, and people that are in the library trying to use it for research cannot do that. This will provide an opportunity for kids either to do some recreational things while they're waiting or do some other studying while they're waiting to get on those computers, and for the folks that want to study to be able to do their research while they're there. And it will provide many, many opportunities for youth athletic activities, also for senior activities, and it's going to be a major facility in that neighborhood that desperately needs a public investment. Because I feel that the neighborhood needs to know that the city thinks enough of your neighborhood to invest in it. I think enough of this neighborhood to get the city and to get my colleagues on the city council and the mayor to agree with me that we're putting $14 million in this neighborhood. And one of the reasons for that is, or one of the really big reasons, is to give the folks that live in that neighborhood, that have business in that neighborhood, an incentive to reinvest in their homes, to reinvest in their business, because the East Side is a good place to live. I think the East Side is getting better. It's getting a lot better. I love it here, and I'm not going anywhere. And I'm glad that you folks are my neighbors out there, and it's been a pleasure to represent you for all these years. I'd like to do it again. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming out this evening. One more round of applause for both of our candidates. On your way out, there's an email sign up if you're interested in the other events that we're doing here in the center, other community forums as well, so please sign up.